Hi, my name is Esmat, one of the inspiring women in STEM Flow for 2024, and today we're gonna explore my story. But before I start, I'd like to acknowledge Tasmanian Aboriginal people as the owners of this land, and I also wanted to pay my deepest respect to both Aboriginal and convict women whose horror and suffering was beyond words. I grew up in a small village in the south of Iran called Shahbenar. This is a picture of our village, and as you can see, there is a hill at the top left that I used to climb and get the best view of the whole village. I was born as the first child in my family. My mother has only a fourth grade education because girls were only allowed to learn basic literacy, cooking, and housekeeping. There was no high school for girls in our village, no pathway to any kind of achievement, but I was fortunate enough to have a wonderful mother who never gave me any idea that I couldn't do whatever I wanted to do or be whomever I wanted to be. She moved us to the next town where I was able to continue my education. There was a library not so far from our high school where I spent most of my time discovering other worlds through books. It was a turning point of my life and probably where my dream of having a lab came about. This is a picture of me with my friends before the school function, and among them, I am the first and only girl who is studying at a graduate level. I graduated from high school as one of the top students and immediately entered Yasud University in agronomy and plant breeding for my bachelor's degree. Combining the concepts of food security and climate change, I was fascinated by the broad range of possibilities that molecular genetics offers. So I decided to continue my career in plant breeding and accepted into the master's degree at the University of Tehran, which is the first-ranked university in Iran. After graduating, I was quite ready to continue my education as a PhD student, but the thing is that I needed to work in order to provide my family. I can describe this chapter of my life as the tough times and great lessons, when I had many jobs, but deep down I knew I can be more. During this time, I also had many farm visits and learned a lot about plants and the environmental stresses that affect their growth and productivity. But I was also learning about plagues faced by so many small farmers and their families as consequences of climate change, prolonged periods of severe drought, extreme heat, and the absolute poverty. And that was when I realized how much we need to develop climate resilient crop varieties. So I gathered a bit of money from years of working and started applying for different universities. And it was frustrating, as you must explore different universities, send so many emails, and of course get several rejections. Every time that you want to apply for an advertised project or to a graduate program, you need to spend lots of time for preparing documents, writing personal statement and research proposal, and then waiting. Most of the time you get an email saying, well, you are good, but not good enough for us. And that's when the most difficult part starts, staying hopeful and keep going. Some will make it and some will fail, but not because they can't do the actual science, but because this stage consumes you gradually, and after all, there is no guarantee of success. I was lucky and got accepted in 2 different universities, and almost a year ago I started my PhD project at the University of Tasmania. Its title is Genetics of Flowering Time in Chickpea. I wanted to work on chickpea because it is a daily staple food to hundreds of millions of people in developing countries. And also, due to its notable robustness, chickpea is a crop of interest under climate change scenario. And in order to produce more chickpeas, we need to improve crop yield, and whether we choose expanding our cultivated areas or go for increasing crop productivity, both rely on crop adaptation. And one of the traits at the core of crop adaptation is flowering time. This key transition from vegetative to reproductive phase is critical stage because it is during this time that seed production and development take place. In my PhD, we want to generate a good understanding of flowering time and how it is controlled by genetics and environment. And to do this, we grow a large diversity panel of chickpeas assembled from 47 countries all around the world, as you can see on the map, and evaluate the responses to the different photoperiods. We hope that ultimately it will provide growers with a better range of high-yielding options for different locations. This way, if you are a farmer in arid or semi-arid areas of Ethiopia, you can have your own option, as well as if you are from Australia or this beautiful woman from India. Looking back, when I ask myself, what are those factors that allowed you to overcome all the geographical and traditional barriers, there are two life-changing elements in my being. A woman, my mother, who had experienced those obstacles before and was brave enough to believe in change and take action. And you can imagine how difficult it could be for a young woman in a tribal area to take her children and move to a city where her daughters can continue their education. And the second, books. They allow you to dream and go beyond reality. So there is no wonder that I use these funds in these two main segments. According to Oxfam, only 1% of girls in tribal areas can finish high school. I was one of those lucky ones, so I'm using the first part of this fund to buy books, school uniforms, and basically educational support of two Afghan girls, Raziye and Rehane, living in Iran, that I was fortunate enough to know them since I was working as a volunteer in an NGO called Society of Students Against Poverty that had centers for educational, artistic, sport, and cultural classes for children. Most of Afghan immigrants in Iran are living under financially difficult situations, and girls' education is the first option to be deleted in families' expenses. This fund will allow them to continue their education without increasing the cost of living for their families. And then books. They can be magical in saving human lives by showing the possibility of different ways of living. Therefore, I invest the last part of this funding to equip the old school library in village with new books in diverse topics from science to literature. A friend of mine in Iran is helping me with that. She was one of the brightest students in our school, but she got married and couldn't continue her education. And now her daughter, who is so into books and had a great collection of them, is helping me with choosing topics that are interesting for their generation. Along the way, I have learned that I cannot change everything, so I can only do what I can do. And I do believe that if each of us do our best, surely we at least start moving towards the world that a girl can be who and do what she wants. Thank you for your listening.